Today we're going to show you something that we just did, and it's a different adventure. I have wanted for years to have an old building where we could put things in and hold them until we can have estate sales, and we got one. Hi, I'm George the Antique Nomad. Come with me as I wander the country in search of valuable vintage, amazing antiques, and cool collectibles. We'll buy, sell, and trade at antique malls, shops, and shows, estate sales, flea markets, thrift stores, anywhere people go to find really interesting things that just aren't made anymore. So come on, let's go! Hey everybody, it's George the Antique Nomad, and I know that during this hiatus we're all looking for things to do. Well, I ended up leaving Florida and coming to Kentucky because it was a safer place to be and because I have a storage house. And so I have plenty to keep me occupied for a while here. A lot of people have been talking about death piles during this time, and if you've been a reseller in antique or vintage or even just general resale for a while, you know, we all end up with this stuff where we buy a bunch of things, or in my case, I sell at shows in malls, I take things on consignment from people, I conduct estate sales. So I end up getting stuff from a lot of different sources, and sometimes it's just more than you can absorb at one time. And so you put it aside, and sometimes you never look at it again, or you think you're going to do something with it later. Well, this is my later. So I am starting to work on prepping. I'm going to have an estate sale here. There's going to be things in here that are going to go on eBay. Maybe we'll do some live sales and some stuff together with you folks. And so I've got to get started. So let's take a look at what's in here. I haven't seen a lot of this stuff for months, so it'll be a surprise. Okay, so let's come on in and take a look at what's here. I had an estate sale here last year. It was really good. I think we sold about $7,000 worth of stuff. There's a little bit left over from that, and then a whole bunch of stuff that I've gotten recently. Things that I had in Florida at the end of show season, because I thought I'd be doing shows this time of year. Or things that have accumulated from consignments that I haven't gotten to process yet. So here we are. This is what I'm going to be looking at, and there's stuff on the surface, and then we'll dig, and I'll come back to you later with another video about what we find. Okay, so starting here are a big old pile of rusty metal things. Obviously, I was thinking I was going to be doing shows. These aren't exactly eBay shippable, big crosscut saws and things like that. I had intended to take this stuff to the Nashville flea market. I got a good deal where I was able to go into a house here in Kentucky and buy a whole ton of old car parts. I was up in the rafters. I wish I'd had someone there to take pictures of that. It was fun. Got everything from, Pontiac to the dashboard out of, I think, a late 60s GMC truck. So anyway, that's a bunch of guy stuff, and at some point when I have a sale here, that'll probably go. This I got right the day before I left Florida, and it is one of these old travel bars. And they called it Executere because it has an airplane on it, like you're going to take this on your airplane. But of course, really, people were mainly taking these with them on picnics because what's more 60s than drinking and driving? So unfortunately, people don't really use them that way anymore, but they're a fun novelty because of that. And people will take them out if they're going to be somewhere for a safe and sane amount of time during a day and want a snort or two. Bunch of metal boxes here. Again, this came out of this garage. It was just thrown in for free with all of these hubcaps, so I took them. And this place is so out of sorts right now. I mean, the next thing we look at is this. Now, this came from an estate sale, and I need to send it to a guy I've been told in California does great restoration. I've seen his work. I haven't used him before, but it's got water damage up here. I wouldn't usually think to repair a print or a serigraph, but this particular piece has the signature of a very famous French artist in pencil in the corner. And I'll put his name up below because we all know I'll massacre it if I tried to say it. But this is potentially a pretty valuable print. It could be worth a few $1,000s, in which case it's worth getting the stain taken out of it. Neat old dome trunk. This is a repair. See, I'm finding all my projects in here. It just needs a little bit of leather or something to replace this slat that's gotten broken, but it's from about 1900 and it's got really nice brocade in this pattern here on the stamped tin. and it's got color, so that's going to be a nice one. This is one of the few Jim Beam bottles, other than the cars and a few specialties, that are really worth much. But this one is from the Seattle World's Fair, and it's the Space Needle. And in Seattle, this sells for about 30 bucks. And that's where it was headed before all of the delays, so we'll see where that ends up. Okay, so this piece is Fenton Spanish lace. It's on the silver crest blank, and here's the old Fenton paper label. People are always asking whether Fenton is always marked, and it isn't, because in the old days they used this. In the really old days they didn't do anything at all, but in the old days they used that paper label there. And because of that, you would have to know that this is Fenton, but it's their crest with the clear and the white. And then it's the Spanish lace pattern because of this patterning in the glass. It's made in the mold, and so you get that extra detail. And a lot of people who are not necessarily Fenton fans really like this particular line because of that extra detail. It's very fancy, it's from the late 60s, and this should sell for about $25. This is a piece of Limoges. I had a set of 7, and 7's an odd number, so I put 6 in them all, and I kept this one out. This is in Mary Frank Gaston's book on Limoges China, and that is one of the Bibles for Limoges China collectors. It shows a lot of the patterns. The prices have changed over the years, but the information's really good. So it's kind of neat to have a piece that was in a book. And that'll go into either eBay or an estate sale, I guess. Lots of decisions to make about that. Okay, so this guy is Old Crow advertising from the 60s, and that's whiskey, and I like old advertising pieces. These always seem to be good sellers. I think I got this somewhere in Kentucky, and it was supposed to go to Florida for shows and never made it, so I guess it might go online. Little tape measure, JFK button. There's some Majolica in here. I see some of this Israeli brass under this totem pole. And the totem pole itself is another repair job. This is kind of cute. Okay, if you see a price on anything as I'm going around, you can have it for that price if you like it. These were estate sale prices. I didn't have a lot left over from the last estate sale, but there were a few cute things, and I like this one because it's a copper tone and brass from about 1900, so I thought that was attractive. Oh, this was a swap meet find, this old green wall phone, and it was $10, which is pretty good. I think there's some room in that. It needs a cord. This box looks like repair stuff and a bunch of little lead soldiers, which I've been selling those for years for a guy. Down here's a couple of really pretty vases. Again, these are consignment. These are Satsuma. These are Japanese from about 1900, and there's a pair of them. And Satsuma kind of went through its best period, the earliest, so this is going to be kind of middle period for quality, but it's got the Japanese painted mark. This is before we had to have marks saying country of origin in English on things. So this is going to be right about 1890 to 1910, I believe. And, you know, I've been selling these for a few $100s each. So those probably will have to go on eBay and will make someone happy. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I got this place. Everybody else has a death pile or a storage locker. Well, I have a storage house, and how'd that happen? Well, let me cut to the video I shot when I got this place a little over a year ago. We're going to show you something that we just did, and it's a different adventure. I have wanted for years to have an old building where we could put things in and hold them until we can have estate sales, and we got one, and it is in Kentucky. Not Florida, not Seattle, not the places that we usually do stuff, but we do sales in Western Kentucky, and there's a lot of stuff in Florida that really belongs here. It's not the kind of thing that Florida buys because their stuff all was built in the last 40 years, but there's great Victorian antiques and Midwestern farm primitives, and they love them here in Kentucky, and so do I. So we needed a place to bring them back and put them where they should go. And this is the place. It used to be a church. It's about 100 years old. It was a house for a while. It's been a lot of different stuff, and it is right next to a little lake in a little town, and it's right near the freeway. It's going to be great. Right now we're going to show you the before. The before is the way it looks, the way we got it, and that is well dilapidated. It's definitely been not so well taken care of, but there is plenty of potential here because it's just a big open space. Coming on in here, we see it's just one big empty room, which is going to be perfect to set up
Now, right now, it's sort of a smelly empty room, but we did get it emptied out, got rid of all the junk that the people who were here before left behind. You can see it's just a nice empty space.
I'm going to get this organized and also start getting ready for an estate sale. I sell for people on consignment frequently. I've got about 60 different clients. And I've got one around here who has stuff to put in for an estate sale. I've got another one south of here, and so I think we can probably have an estate sale once things lighten up and people are able to go to estate sales again. Yeah, if we do a racetrack, there's room for people to be safe in here. Also have a lot of Northwest and other basketry, a box full of African as well. This one with the butterfly is from either Alaska or it's coastal Salish in Washington. And I've got a bunch of these that are a little bit worn, and they're going to be for the estate sale here. Okay, we have ship's wheel from Florida, or a boat wheel, I should say. That'd be a pretty small ship. And again, that's something more of a decorator piece. That might be able to sell online. I've got another piece of a Chevrolet. Bunch of mirrors. Again, these were going to malls, so this isn't going to be for online stuff. Really pretty painted screen here. That was in one of the malls, and I had to take it out because I didn't have room for it, and so it's going to sit here and be in an estate sale, I guess. And oh gosh, let's see. This old peacock tin or pheasant tin. It's from the 1920s. It's kind of beaten up, but it's a nice look. Okay, and it's got a bunch of old correspondence. So this is sort of a hodgepodge of leftovers. I bought the tin at an estate sale, and there's some cute old-fashioned cards, and looks like a mammy who needs to be reunited with her body. It's from the 1940s. A couple little dolls, and an old picture in a union case. So, you know, just some little fodder. I think this will stay for estate sale. If you see anything, by the way, when I'm walking around here, this is all stock. It is all for sale. And so direct message me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I've got email in my description. Get a hold of me and I'd be glad to tell you anything you want to know about an item, send you pictures, tell you prices, and we can take it from there. Okay, so we've got the NHL Hockey Game, and this is kind of fun. I had this when I was a kid, not this exact one, but this is from the 60s, and it's always Montreal versus Toronto. I don't think they did any other teams, even though they show, this is the original 6 teams from the NHL before the expansion in the 60s, so that puts it back in time to the classic era, and hockey fans would like something like that. It's got the original clock and pucks and things. It's supposed to be very deft, and let's get him out of the way because I'm not a good shot. Oh, there we go. Well, tried. And there's an own goal. But again, it's pretty big, so I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to handle that. Probably when I set up for the estate sale here, it'll just get priced. And let's see, we've got old book banks, International Harvester. I mean, there's just boxes and boxes to go through, obviously. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, some of it's ugly, and a little of it is really cool, and we'll just have to go through and discover it and come back with more information. Oh boy, and this box is, you never know. Okay, Strawberry Shortcake and Royal Dalton in the same box. Well, that makes a lot of sense. That's kind of cute. That's from about 1900. But anyway, I've got a bunch of digging to do, you can certainly tell. Oh, let's see, hankies. I have got hankies galore and gloves, all sorts of this stuff. This would have been for Easter, of course, but we missed having the Easter show, so now I've got a big pile of these, so I will probably wholesale those, maybe to somebody online. Nice old oak rocking chair. There's some furniture that's going to be an estate sale thing. There's a neat brass lamp that you can't see under this painted shade that came with it, which needs a little bit of fixing, but I can do that. Books, boy. Got some old books. Football, Boy Scouts, 8 Cousins by Louisa May Alcott, who I think did Little Women. These are all cute. They've got good dust jackets. They'll be $2 or $3 a piece. And they'll either be here at the estate sale, or if someone wants them, I'd be glad to send them out. The old roller skates are cute. I like the graphics on the box. That came from a place in Evansville, Indiana, an estate. And then, boy, there's a whole stack of pictures and prints, and some are original paintings. This is kind of fun because it's got a modernist feel, but it's also naturalistic, so I guess it could go in a few different places. And a lot of these are, you know, going to be $10 and $15 pieces. Probably will just hang on the walls, so we'll show you when we get this set up. This place will be cute when the estate sale comes, believe it or not. Hard to tell now. This one is signed. That is Tom Bradley, and he was the mayor of Los Angeles, I think. So some collector might like that. Here's a whole bunch of stuff left over from the show season, everything from costume jewelry rings to little silver salt cellars. Try saying that 3 times fast. And, oh, there's a good face under there, that guy. I forgot about him. He's a decanter. So, yeah, there'll be fun things. I see some sterling in there, so we'll dig through that. There's more Christmas. This is a wall map of, where is this going to be? Oh, South America. There we go. Yeah, we'll get that up. And big old Fiesta deviled egg plate there. That's going to be about a $20 piece. I think that's actually in a haul video that I did, and it never got out to sell. So we will have to do something about that because it's time. I've got a whole box of Victorian whimsies here, and a couple of them are worth repairing. This one that says 1903. A lot of these are kind of threadbare. These were out of a collection, and a lot of the ones in better shape have sold, but there still are some cute ones, and I think that there's enough to them that's like this one's from Niagara Falls. A lot of these were sold to people on their honeymoon at Niagara Falls around 1900, and these were beaded by the Iroquois and the Mohawk tribes and sold there. And then we have the world's tiniest Afghan ever. I know there's a lot of Afghan fans out there. Let's see, this shelf here, some cranberry glass. These are out of caster sets. There's some cute child's plates. Vintage fashion, there's some of that in here. This is kind of cute. It's maybe a little hem there, but that's a 60s piece. I love the color. And there's a couple other pieces that are kind of fun. I like this too because it's the old thing you would put your clothespins in, and it's got a great graphic on it. I have to put that through the wash. Got an applique under there, so there's some linens in the house. Here's some more stuff that I think some of this was from shows or going to shows. The carved lamp is from China, and that's from the 20s or 30s, and that's actually a pretty nice piece. And I think I can get that in order. This is Russian. It's Lomonosov, and it's going to say made in USSR, and probably, again, a $25 piece. I think that's a consignment that never got anywhere yet. Of course, everything was going places, and then we stopped having shows, so it's sitting here now. This is by Dugan, I believe. This is a 1910s carnival glass piece. It looks a lot different than the carnival glass that you see from the 60s because the sheen is definitely more satiny. It's not so like water in an oil slick. And on the bottom we see that the base color is blue, and in carnival glass, when they talk about the color of the glass, you have to look at the base because the iridescence fools you otherwise. We got a flamingo. I think there's a whole Wedgwood tea set somewhere that never got out. This is a Cebus girl. Let me show you the Cebus mark, because sometimes people see these and they think it's just some studio thing and that it's newer than it is. But Cebus actually has been produced for quite a while, and it's a good story and good quality wear. So. And she's got a very pretty face. As does our Florence lady up here, and then we've got Italian applied. This is Capo di Monte down there. So there's some nice things in here. Royal Copley is an Ohio company that we all seem to find and talk about, and this is a neat little bud vase. I think that might be a good thing to put online, actually, or maybe have a live sale. Stanford, I believe, made that. And this was from the 50s, and you had to actually take your Jeep up to the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, the San Juans, actually. And I think somebody who's into vintage cars or Jeeps or something, or is from that part of Colorado, will like this. So I probably should put that one online. Just so much stuff. Bunch of Francoma Christmas plates, jewel tea. I got these at the local auction. I think that there's a video of that you can watch. And this is perfect because this definitely describes exactly what I'm dealing with here as I'm looking around, which is oversized load. And this is one. So that came off the back of a truck, obviously. And no, I didn't just find it in the road, but I paid for it like I did. So that was nice. Oh my goodness. What else is there in here? We have another room to look into. I've got a bunch of these blue and white souvenir plates from about 1900. These were by a company called Roland and Marcellus. That's the R&M figure. Some of these used to go for big money. They mainly go for about $18 to $20 now. There are a few that go for more if they're involved with one of the early World's Fairs, but this one's the Landing of the Pilgrims, so good Thanksgiving piece. This is Franciscan pottery from the 30s. This is called Golden Glow, where they get the variegation between sort of an orange and a rust color. And there's no mark on the bottom of this one. A lot of their stuff has a G. McB for Gladding McBean mark, because that was the company that made it. And sometimes it's just marked USA, and I've got the creamer and sugar as well. So this is something to look for because the people who still collect this type of ceramic really like Golden Glow. It's a very popular pattern, or it's a very popular glaze. It wasn't in production for very long. Oh good, here's a good box. Right off the bat, here's a little macaw basket with lid, and the macaw are the very tip of Northwest Washington, the tribe there. These are the whaling boats that they would take out. You'll also see ducks sometimes. It's got nice color. The color of baskets sometimes fades, and that's a natural thing, and people like it, but if it's a strong color that has stayed, and this is a later piece, so the dyes are a little stronger. But that's a nice little piece, and it's got the cedar planking on the bottom that you can see there. And so that's another hint when you see this sort of work that this is macaw. Macaw is probably the most desirable of the American Northwest, the United States Northwest basket makers. And we've got a couple of Skookum dolls. The Skookum on the left here is in pretty good shape. She's got her little blanket and everything. These originally had dried apples for heads, and then they turned into the composition that you see here in the 1930s and 40s. So those are good things. So I'm glad to see some better quality stuff in this too. Like I said, it's just a mix of everything. I mean, whatever's ended up here. Here we've got some fur coats. Oh yes, okay. So before all the delays, I was expected to go out to Seattle, and this is my suitcase that I had packed because whenever I go on the plane, having learned the hard way, I pack the breakable stuff in the suitcase, and I wrap it in things like fur coats. So there's all sorts of little things in here, a bunch of snuff bottles, miniature beer bottles. I showed these in a video that I shot when I got them. I still have some of those left. Ooh, for cat lovers, I've got the kitty cat corkscrew. This is going to be 1960s novelty piece. And there's some eyes for you. And oh, there's more in there, but again, we'll get into all this as we dig through here and show you more. This doesn't have a railroad back stamp, but this is a railroad plate. This is Galatea that was used on the Milwaukee Road, but it only says the pattern name. So this is one of the ones where you need the book or the reference so that you can figure out which ones do say railroad company names on them and which ones don't. Because some of the ones that don't, you'll see at thrift stores for very little money. This I think was $2 or $3 and it should be worth about $45. I just got this right before I left Florida. This is a hassock fan. So underneath is your fan and the big fan motor, and it blows the cold air out, and then you can sit on it. So on a really hot summer day, the idea was that you could be right next to the air because you could literally sit on top of this thing. And it's pretty heavy, so I'm gonna put it down now. That's going to be from the 50s, and it does work. I always check things. I mean, if it doesn't work, most people don't want it as far as old appliances. This is a really great stained glass window out of a church that I managed to crack along the concrete, so I've got to somehow figure out how to get that back together and make it structural. Probably have to cement it and then maybe even put it in a frame. Oh boy, and then there's a couple of these. These are neat. These are from here in Kentucky. I bought two of them together, but these are stove covers for the old hearths in like a bedroom or a small room in a house. And you've got the hearth itself. This has a nice Art Nouveau surround. I think this is a marriage, but she's also Art Nouveau, and she's just got a really great look to her, and that's why people like these. Most people aren't using these anymore. They're just putting them in houses in front of like an old register or someplace where they can cover up an ugly heat source and actually show something cool that is heat resistant. And something like this probably worth $200 maybe. Boy, there's more and more and more. There's a good lino cut there on the wall, and I've got to research that artist. I don't know who that is, and I think it's from Wisconsin. Linoleum cut is where they would literally cut linoleum and then use the surfaces they left to ink and then make the print out of that. And it was really popular in the 20s, 30s, and 40s especially. Here's the next room. Here's the before.
So now I'm going backwards into the part where we've got to do some work on the floor. There's a good soft spot here. Woo! If we jump up and down real hard, we might fall through. And then in here, there's just a little bit of stuff. They pretty much gutted the place, but for us, that's great because it means we just start with a blank slate. We even have leftover things that they left for us. Some of them are actually pretty cool. These old chairs are real popular right now, and they have surface rust, but they're actually solid. So we'll get those fixed up, and someone will love to have those. And then just some other basic things, some old beer cans, some old baseball cards, strange things they left behind. So that's
And here's what it looks like right now. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here too. The previous tenants, like you saw in the other clip, took all the cabinetry. So every time I get cabinetry or kitchen queens or furniture, I can put it in here. The Enid Collins flower basket, and look, it matches my shirt. It's a good piece from the 60s. These are very popular. I think it's missing one floret. I have a jeweler in Seattle who can do a nice rhinestone to match, and then I will sell it as is. But it still should probably sell for $40 or $45. It was worth saving. EC is Enid Collins in the corner here. Sometimes you'll see bags marked Collins of Texas. Sometimes the mark is on the inside, especially on her box purses. There's a lot of craft-made purses from that era that look sort of like this, but if it's got the EC, they're usually a little more detailed, more encrusted, and they're the originals, and they're the ones that collectors really want. This is a nice little piece that I am hopeful is bone rather than ivory, and it looks like it is, but I'll have to look up close. Ivory is so limited in where you can sell it now, so we're always hoping these were made out of bone, like horse bone or that sort of thing, as opposed to tusk. Oh, some games here. I love jarts. It's great. It was taken off the market because it was dangerous. It was dangerous if you threw them at each other. Again, I don't know who these dumb kids were that made everything go away. That was so much fun. Bolo balls, all sorts of stuff that was fun dangerous. If you just knew what you were doing, you'd be fine. I guess they figured they didn't want to thin out our ranks so much. 2XL is a robot game where you plug the old cassette tapes into it. Like 8 tracks. This is from the 1970s. Mego made these. They're worth about $100 now. I've got to make sure this guy works. As far as retro appliances, the Action Dome sounds like a place for wrestling or something, but it's actually for Vitabix, so I guess it is vegetables wrestling in the blender, but that thing works like a charm. And $40 is actually pretty good. They go for more than that online. And then we've got this table. One of my favorite things is this. This is California Originals. This was supposed to go to Florida for my shows where the modernists go. And this is a 1950s piece. I don't know whether Cal Originals marked these or not. Let's flip it over and see. Very, very faint, and it's a heavy glaze. You might not be able to see it. That's the stock number. It would have said Cal ORIG as well, but you really can't read it. And these are cool. They go for, I think, $25 or so. I think it's a great shape. I love the color. This is $4, and it's the University of Missouri, and it is an older piece. I think this mug actually might date as far back as the 20s or 30s, and the University of Missouri dates to the Roman numerals on the crest there. My family are from Missouri, but none of them actually lived there long enough to go to university on that side. And then there's dishware, lots of dishware. There are some pretty patterns. This is Lenox in the Belvedere pattern. And Lenox was the American company. You'll see a lot of people talk about Lenox Belique. And when they were told they couldn't use the Belique mark anymore, well, then they just started calling themselves by their own name. The nice thing about Lenox is it is good quality. It's the stuff that they've used in the White House since Woodrow Wilson was in the White House. And it actually still sells. So I think someone will be glad to get it for that price. You usually don't see a paper label on hull, but this had such a small area to put hull art on the feet that I think they thought maybe it would not be noticed. So this would have been for some parents in the baby boom who just had a kid, and it would have probably had a plant in it, or you'd put diaper pins or that sort of thing in them. And they're just starting to be collectible again. This is Avon Cape Cod, and it's nice we have a little light because you can see the real deep red and why people like that about it. It was made by Wheaton Glass of New Jersey in the 70s and 80s, and so a lot of people remember this and still collect it. I got this at the local auction again. It was supposed to go to shows. It somehow didn't end up in the box, and I think that I've got a video on when I bought that. You'll actually see it. Vernon Kilns from California. This is a fun pattern of Franciscan ware again called Seascapes. This was done in the late 70s. They didn't do it for very long. It's really only popular in seashore areas. This one is the conch, as it says. And I see some Stengel. So the oyster trays here are Minton, and I want to show you these. First of all, they're oyster trays because they were made to put the sauce in the middle and the oysters in each of the shells.
Those are scallops.
These are scallops, that's true. Any sort of shellfish would do, but they were called oyster plates just because they, well, that was the first thing that they really served on these. And the reason oysters were a big deal is that you couldn't get them if you didn't live on the coast until the 1870s when they started having refrigerated shipping. So they became a big rage. So this is by the Minton Company, and you can see Minton's in the little globe there. It's very tiny on this piece. And then it says that it is an 18th century salt glaze. Well, what they're really saying is that it is originally done in the 18th century piece that they redid in the 1900s, and most likely in the 1940s, the reason being that it's completely white. And in the 40s during the war, the English couldn't use any colors of any sort in the ceramics because all of those materials were kept aside for the war effort. These are worth about $35 each. If you had an original from the 1700s, it'd be worth about 10 times that. This is kind of a neat shaped vase. This is 1930s. It's Trenton Pottery, Trenton Art Pottery out of New Jersey. And I think it's got the TAC label. It's really good quality. And they weren't in production for a really long time, but they did these deco designs, and they're really quite underrated. If you look at this closely, it doesn't have any glaze bubbles. It's really even in terms of the way it's fired. It's really well shaped. I mean, it's a nice piece. It's a good thing to collect if you like deco and you're on a budget, because people don't charge a lot for it, but it's actually good quality. Let's see, this is a fish set, and that is celluloid handled. It's missing some of the pieces. I'm not sure what to do with it. It actually has everything except spoons. Fish sets usually didn't have spoons, but it's got a big drawer, so I'm a little confused. I think something's not all there. There's a really pretty chandelier in here I have to get put together. It's got these great red dangles, and this came out of an estate in Florida, and it's one of these projects I never got to, so I think I'll get this cleaned up. You can order the plastic covers and replace those for pretty cheap, so I think I'll look those up and get that going, because that's a really nice piece that should sell for $125 or $150 in a store or that sort of thing, and it's small enough it could even be shipped. Oh, another phone. This one's cool because it's a two-tone and a rotary. That's neat. That should have gone with me to shows, so we'll get that out. This looks like a hand-painted piece, and that's Limoges again. And gosh, old toaster here. These are the old flip kind when you actually just put the toast in, and this would get all hot and red, and so would all of this. And so you'd flip the toast up, and when it was done or it started to burn, then you would take it and you'd have to turn it over and then do the other side. So it was before pop-ups. This is going to be 1920s and 30s. But they still work. Almost all of them still work if you can find the right cord. And, you know, I think I'm only looking for $10 on this. They usually sell for about $25, but I think I have 3 of them. And sometimes when you're a dealer and have been doing this a long time, you just figure, I'm going to get another one, let someone else have some fun. So, wow, okay, I've got my work cut out for me. One last box, and boy, do I seem to have boxes and dishes. This is the Provincial Blue by Metlocks, I believe, or no, this is True Blue. Provincial Blue is a little different. So this is Metlocks True Blue, and Metlocks says Vernon Ware by Metlocks, made in California. That's because Vernon and Metlocks merged. Metlocks basically took them over. And so this was using the old Vernon speckled glazes on Metlocks' shapes, and it would be early 60s. And I think I'm going to sell that one as a whole set because it's got serving pieces, and I think it's a service for 8, and it's all in good shape.
So yeah, this is the project, but it's on a good foundation and it's a good empty shell to work with. I've been wanting to do something like this for years, so I'm really excited about it. You think, well, gee, it's 12 hours to bring all that stuff up from Florida. Well, I'll tell you, in Kentucky, you can get an old house like this for about what you would pay for a used car anywhere else. So it's a deal, and we're going to have fun with it.
My goodness, I have work to do, so I'm going to have more to show you as this goes along. If you saw anything that looked interesting, let me know. If you have questions about anything you see, let me know. I'm George the Antique Nomad. I'm on Facebook, Periscope, Instagram, and Twitter. I do a daily post every day in social media of the pick of the day, some interesting antique or vintage thing that I've encountered. And so we'll look forward to seeing you again. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for joining me again in the fun and fascinating antique community, here where online meets the real world. Please click the subscribe button below, click the bell to be notified when new videos upload, leave a comment below, and hit thumbs up to like this video. Links to our online social media daily posts and our items for sale are in the description. This is George at the Antique Nomad. Bye for now.